And I land safely from the plane. I am German.
That's German.
Sorry.
Hello there, I'm Koala Spruce, the Mad Spruce King, and today we're going to look at Battlefield 1's first DLC, They Shall Not Pass. So what comes with this DLC? You get 2 new operations, the Devil's Anvil and Beyond the Marne, with 4 new locations. The fiery hellscape Verdun Heights, the close quarters destroyed Fort de Vaux, the tank battle in Soissons, and the famous poppy fields in Rupture. You also get 2 new guns per class that are unlocked by completing tasks of that class. There's also a new game mode known as Frontlines that combines a little bit of operations, conquest, and rush all into one map. There has also been an update to grenades. Previously, certain grenade types would populate with 2 grenades in your loadout, like gas grenades. Now all grenades populate with 1 grenade in your loadout. However, now they replenish over time, so you don't necessarily need a support class to get new grenades. Although, if a support class leaves a resupply, you will get your grenades faster. But let's jump into the details of the maps. They Shall Not Pass takes the unforgiving nature of war and pits you against it. The first map I played was Verdun Heights on the attacking German side in operations mode. It starts as a normal village map, something we've seen before, full of objectives to complete to clear out the sector. And we were held back for a little while, but as we broke through we saw that the countryside had turned into a hellscape. Destroyed buildings and flaming hillside greeted us as we turned the corner. Enemy fire came from elevated positions and there was little cover to protect us from the attacks or the sounds of our allies crying out before their death. It was this element that gave a glimpse of the horror of war. That feeling stuck with me and it changed how I played. The objective changed from completing tasks to just trying to survive. And this is a nice dynamic, it changes it up a little bit. In a lot of shooter maps, you feel like you're just completing tasks and tagging enemies, like it's almost a paintball match. But this dynamic changes it up a little bit. The Devil's Anvil offers an unforgiving situation for attackers and lends to the defenders. This does not mean that it is easy for the defenders, but they do have an advantage of the terrain. Fort de Vaux, in contrast to Verdun Heights, is more close quarters. This map emphasizes the horrible losses in the First World War over very little territory. The fort is destroyed and it makes for a lot of bottlenecking. Though on many operation games, if you're facing a decent French team, you're not likely to make it to Fort de Vaux, and you're probably going to use all 3 attacks on Verdun Heights, or at least 2 of them. Unlike in other operations, the attackers and defenders do not get a behemoth unit. They must rely on specialty units like the Sentry or Flamethrower kit, as well as foggy weather to help them out. There is artillery that comes into play if you fail as the attacker at the first point, and comes into play for defenders at the last sector. The second set of maps involves the iconic poppy fields and survival for the defenders. The attackers also can gain a super heavy tank as a behemoth if they fail the first time. Soissons pits defenders against a tank assault, with attackers seemingly having 4 to 6 tanks at a time. My first encounter on this map was with gloom and foggy weather, while also being overwhelmed by tanks. It is possible to win as defenders, but it takes coordination, and sometimes it takes the hope that the enemy is dividing their tanks up to the 2 objectives. Otherwise, be prepared to sit there with your rocket gun, aiming down your sights, ready to take out a tank, and then just to see 3 more come over the ridge. You'll probably have a few "well, I'm screwed" moments as you run away from those metal monsters. But then, should you fail, or if you're on the attacking side succeed, you will enter Rupture, with its famous poppy fields littering the landscape. Of course, the downside being that this is a battlefield and you are at war. Fighting from trench to trench, you will try to take the sector or defend them. So these poppies become less decoration and more symbolic of all the bloodshed on the battlefield. Both sides have tanks as you attempt to take all the sectors. The bridge section in particular is interesting for the new Frontline mode, as it creates a bottleneck as it is an objective to take. It also provides cover for scouts and support classes to hide in the supports to shoot at the enemy. So let's get into the new Frontline mode. When I first played Battlefield 1, I thought Operations mode would have you defend, and then if you were successful, you could counterattack. I was wrong, and I could understand why. With multiple maps, the operations would possibly take forever. So enter Frontline mode, to give me exactly what I wanted but in a more practical way. Frontline mode gives the fun of operations with a clear front line, attacking points and defending points, but also integrates rush. You fight over control points like sectors, and if you succeed, you push the enemy back. If you push them all the way back to their base, you get roughly 35 tickets to try to take out their telegraphs like in Rush. Depending on the players, this could take 5 minutes, or it could take an hour and a half. I once joined a game that had already been going on for 75 minutes. The potential for this mode will allow you to level up your classes and practice new tactics, and to worry less about the tickets and more about the objectives themselves. Frontline also lends well to the new guns added to the game. So as I mentioned before, 2 new guns have been given to every class. They're not unlocked by leveling up your class or by purchasing war bonds, which is good for anyone who's had the game since it came out, as you probably are swimming in war bonds and could just buy anything as soon as it was granted to you in the DLC. These new guns change things up, but also give players a new goal to go after. Unlike medals that change every week, this gives a new weapon to unlock, and then increases the likelihood that they're actually going to try to use the weapon because they spent all that time unlocking it. So you have to use a specific rifle or get periscope spots to unlock the new weapons. This changes things up. This forces scouts who only sniped before to use infantry rifles. This might encourage assault classes to use more shotguns or a particular rifle. This changes up the predictability of battles, and it can mean that the developers can ensure that weapons get used more often that weren't previously used before, or weapons that they spend a lot of time tweaking to make sure people would use it in a certain situation get used more often. Overall, I would say that They Shall Not Pass is a welcome addition to Battlefield 1, making the game more than just a multiplayer shooter, by giving new challenges and showing even more glimpses into the chaos that was the First World War. The DLC also makes me hopeful for the future DLCs coming out later on. If you like war games and you can afford it, I would really recommend Battlefield 1 and They Shall Not Pass. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you found it useful. I'd like to thank my friend Bill, who's Sir Digby Chicken Caesar that you saw in the opening, for helping me record footage and for playing the new DLC with me. I had a lot of fun with it, so I hope you do too. Happy playing, everybody.
There was something in the air that night.
You're so beautiful.
Fernando.
Your cape is above your head. You look ridiculous.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.